Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. We're so glad to have you here. My name is Scott Sinclair. I'm the Senior Manager of Programs here at Cancer and Careers, and I will be your host this afternoon. Uh, for those of you who are listening in on your phone, if you could please send us an email to cancerandcareers@cew.org with your name and the phone number that you're dialing in from. That way we can confirm your attendance and make sure that you get all of the relevant follow-up information. Now, if you are new to Cancer and Careers, first of all, welcome. We are so glad to have you here. We are a national nonprofit and the only program of its kind solely dedicated to empowering and educating people with cancer to thrive in their work environment. This slide has a list of all of our free programs that we offer. Our comprehensive website is available in both English and Spanish, and it is the heart of everything that we do. There you can find various support services, including our resume review service and access to career coaches. Our educational blog and news feed are both rich resources where you can find information for those who have been diagnosed, your caregivers, employers, healthcare professionals. All of you can stay current on topics related to work and cancer. We also have a free publication library available in both English and Spanish, which provides tangible, easy to digest information about working or looking for work after a cancer diagnosis. And those are all available in both hard copy and PDF formats. And we also offer numerous events every year, from hour-long webinars like this one you're about to see right now to full-day events. And I will be back on at the end of Sage's presentation today to tell you a little bit more about what we have coming up. Now, for those of you who are seeking continuing education credits, this slide lists all of the organizations who have accredited today's webinar, as well as the required steps for getting a certificate. This information is also available on our website. A link to the evaluation and the post-test will be shared at the conclusion of the webinar, so please take some time to complete them at that moment. However, if you're not able to complete it today, that's totally fine. You are going to receive an email no later than tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern with all of the links and information that you might need. Now, for those of you not requesting continuing education credits, we actually really need to hear from you too. So please consider filling out that evaluation at the end of the session or tomorrow when you get the email too. For people who are not requesting continuing education credits, you do not need to complete the post-test, but we would love to hear some feedback from you as well. These evaluations help us know what's working and what's not working, and make sure that we can serve you the best. It also helps us show the value of these programs to our funders so that they can continue to invest in CAC and all of the work that we do. Also, for those of you who are planning to request continuing education credits, our accrediting bodies require us to share this slide and let you know that there are no conflicts of interest to report. Now, as you might know, Zoom has a lot of great features which you can use to interact with this event, with us, and with other attendees. You'll see a chat box in your features panel. Feel free to use this to communicate with each other, with our staff throughout the event. However, it's important to note that the chat box is not private and it will show your first and last name. So just be mindful of that if or when you engage in those chats. You'll also see a Q&A box in your features panel. If you have any questions today about anything that Sage is talking about, please submit them in the Q&A box below, not the chat box. We don't want to miss anything in the chat. And we know the importance of privacy, so there is an option to submit your questions anonymously in that Q&A box. We will do our best at the end to answer everybody's questions, but please be patient. If we don't get to your question today, please send us an email at cancerandcareers@cew.org, and we will make sure that we get you an answer as soon as we can. Now, thanks in part to support from Genentech and P&G Beauty, Cancer and Careers is proud to offer our 11th year of the Balancing Work and Cancer webinar series, which was created to provide tangible information for anybody whose life has been touched with cancer and of the work issues that arise after a diagnosis. Additionally, we would like to recognize Cancer and Careers as year-round sponsors who support all of our core programs and allow us to continue providing all of our resources and services free of charge. Now, there can be many physical, mental, emotional changes during or after cancer treatments, which understandably may impact body image and self-confidence. For people who are balancing work and cancer, knowing how to manage these feelings that accompany these emotional and physical changes can help reduce on-the-job anxiety, improve performance, and increase the ability to succeed professionally after a diagnosis. To lead today's presentation, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Sage Bolte. Sage serves as the Chief Philanthropy Officer and President of the Innova Health Foundation. She is an oncology counselor and most recently previously served as the Executive Director of Life and Cancer and Patient Experience of the Innova SHAR Cancer Institute. She is known nationally for her work in sexual health and cancer and is respected as a leader in the field of oncology social work. Dr. Bolte has written or contributed to several peer-reviewed articles or books, including 3 chapters of the Oxford textbook, The Handbook for Oncology Social Work. Now, following the presentation, again, we're going to have some time for questions, so please drop those in the Q&A box if you have any. But without further ado, I am going to pass it over to Sage. Welcome, Sage.
Thanks so much, Scott. And thank you, Cancer and Careers, for having me and for being willing to tackle this really important topic around body image and body confidence and how it impacts how we show up in the workplace. So Scott mentioned this, but I'm going to briefly go over what the key topics are we're going to cover. We're going to talk about how body image might impact cancer or impacted by cancer and the effect that this might have at work. Understand that the common body image challenges, including negative body image due to cancer treatment, and then identify a few techniques to maintain and/or increase self-confidence while working or when returning to work. I know we also have some professionals on the webinar as well, and look forward to being able to answer your questions as well, but this is tailored specifically towards survivors. And I will try to keep my eye on the chat as questions come in, but we will do our best to get to those towards the end as well. So I think it's really important to start by normalizing that confidence can be impacted in many areas after a cancer diagnosis. It might show up as a lower confidence in our body, and that may show up because we're afraid of recurrence and we are constantly wondering, is that something else? Is it something new? And that takes our mind capacity to a very distant place, maybe not focused in the present. It can change our body confidence and our body image. It can impact relationships, both negatively and positively. It can impact intimacy, both sexual intimacy as well as emotional intimacy. And certainly, it can affect work performance, whether that's because of chemo brain or fatigue or our preoccupation with worry. And of course, it does also often impact our physical capabilities, our physical fitness, which also can impact our energy, our clarity, our awareness. So it's so normal how cancer can impact so many areas of our lives. And I think I start with that because I also think it's really important just to recognize that there are so many losses that come when someone is diagnosed with cancer, both for the person diagnosed as well as the people who love them. And there are often a lot of gains as well. But I think sometimes we get stuck in the, suck it up or be a strong survivor or celebrate survivorship, that we forget that it's okay to grieve and acknowledge what was changed or what was lost through a cancer diagnosis. And that includes the changes in our body. That's not selfish. It's not conceited. It is a normal human response to something that was out of your control that impacts your day-to-day life. So when I saw this little note, I thought, gosh, that really nails it. Dear body, please heal. I don't know how much I can take, how much more I can take. I know I need to be patient, but please. Why do we talk about body image? For that same reason. There's the desire to want to appear back to our old self or for our body to function as it used to. And 31 to 67%, I would say this number probably is a little higher, struggle with body image changes. And I want to differentiate between body image evaluation and body image investment. So evaluation refers to the degree to which one is satisfied with our appearance, or whether there is a discrepancy between what we perceive and what we hope to have. So I may think that I appear overweight, but you, in interacting with me, might say you are at a perfect size. There's a discrepancy there. The investment refers to the value or importance I place on that. So maybe I don't care if I am a little overweight. And so it's not going to create distress for me. It isn't going to necessarily change my investment. But if I do, and that takes it to an extreme, I might find myself withholding food or having irrational and unrealistic expectations on myself and my body, which can impact how I feel about myself. It can certainly impact a feeling of shame, embarrassment, or guilt. So it's really important, again, to know that body image concerns are normal human experience. When they become dysfunctional is when we have expectations that may be unrealistic, but also that set us up to constantly be distressed. Our self-esteem and our body image are two different things, but interrelated. So self-esteem refers to how we think about ourselves. It's self-confidence, self-respect, pride, independence, and self-resilience. A positive self-esteem can lead to usually more positive outcomes. We're more socially engaged. We have greater confidence. A lower self-esteem typically shows up feeling more insecure and anxious or depressed. And body image is a part of our self-esteem. It is how we think about and view our body, both positively and negatively. So a negative body image typically can negatively impact our self-esteem. Can also impact dating relationships. We may not be comfortable putting ourselves out there. Can also impact sexual relationships and function. So when we think about what are the common body image challenges, I've said this word a lot, but body insecurity. I just don't feel comfortable in my body, which I then am preoccupied about. My pants don't fit the same, or my prosthetic isn't fitting the same, or maybe I have a trach now and I'm constantly aware of that. So there's the insecurity. Sometimes our sense of masculinity and femininity, or somewhere in between that, can be challenged, how we view ourselves. For some, hair loss or the hair regrowth can impact our body image and how we see ourselves. The weight changes, weight gain, weight loss certainly can. The changes in skin, dryness, oiliness, all the changes that rosacea, the changes that come with many treatments. As I mentioned early on, chemo brain, right? The cognitive changes that influence a sense of self, that fog that maybe makes us feel less confident about our work or how we show up in conversations. And there are always the disfigurements or scarring that can impact our sense of self, our body image, whether they're visible or hidden. And then often the challenge of how much do we disclose? If we have a visible impact of cancer that at the workplace, it might be apparent that one is going through treatment. That still does not mean you have any obligation to disclose, but it can create challenges if people are asking questions, how much you want to keep private, and can add to some of those body image challenges. The understanding of low body confidence. So when we think about how that shows up, oftentimes what that might look like is you might notice that you're avoiding social situations because you don't want to be asked questions, or maybe your hair is in that in-between growth stage and you're not sure whether to wear a wig or not wear a wig, or you're just uncomfortable about the questions you're going to get. Perhaps romantic relationships are feeling stress, or you're spending a lot of time fixing or adjusting your appearance. If you're having a sense of constant anxiety, depression, or other negative feelings, these are all correlated oftentimes with dysfunctional thoughts, maladaptive behaviors, and/or negative emotions. So let me give you an example. If you get up in the morning getting ready for work and you're looking in the mirror and you're having these thoughts like, oh, when am I ever going to look like my old self again? I look so bloated, or I look so skinny. I look so red. Everybody's going to ask me questions. Can't cover it up. I'm so tired of this. and you spend an hour trying to figure out a way to make yourself look in your mind more acceptable. And then at work, you're preoccupied by it. And you think nobody's going to talk to you, or everybody's going to talk to you, or everybody notices, right? And those thoughts then go to maybe something like, I'm never going to be able to perform in front of a group again. I'm never going to be able to give this lecture because I can't think about all the eyes being on me. Then I think I'm never going to be the same. Then I think I'm never going to be good enough, right? You can see that negative spiral happen pretty quick. Those thoughts quickly can lead to you withdrawing. It might lead to you continuing to berate yourself, which can then lead to you performing lower at work. So it's really important, as we talk today about body image and how that impacts work, it's also important to understand that our mind is a huge player in that. And we can take more control over that than sometimes we give ourselves credit for. And certainly this doesn't just impact the workplace, this impacts home too, but stress at homes impact stress at work. And again, if we're constantly thinking about how we show up, that's impacting how we show up at home too. And I want to just name, there are several people, and maybe on this webinar, who are living with advanced disease. And that has additional complex challenges that we can't ignore. The treatment unknown, when you're going to change treatments again, if you're waiting and watching, what the anxiety, how that can produce around what project do you take on, how much time can you put into a project. So I think it's important to name it, it does have complex challenges. And all of this can impact our work-life boundaries. We may completely avoid relationships at work because we don't want to bring our personal world in, or our coworkers, if they know we have cancer, may alter their interactions with us because they don't know what to say, or they don't know how to approach us, or they've been told not to say anything. So that can lead to greater loneliness or isolation as well. So what do I do with that all great, amazing news, Sage? There's a lot. First and foremost, within any situation, when we have a life change or a trauma, we need to get comfortable with our story. So give space for your losses and grief. Allow yourself time to grieve. And that doesn't mean, spend a year grieving, but give yourself time. If you notice that something triggers a feeling of sadness or a loss or a memory of what was, give your time, give yourself space to acknowledge it, honor it, and then move forward. One of the most important things we can do in getting comfortable with our story is really understanding our diagnosis, the consequences of treatments, and any risk for the future, so that when we're asked, whether in a work situation or a personal situation, we have the ability to answer confidently. And that means decide what you do and don't want to disclose. Have that sort of scripted. Be ready to get asked any questions. People are very well intended, but sometimes people don't have filters, or they just think it's appropriate to ask. For example, somebody might come up to you and say, is your hair ever going to grow back? Or I heard this impacts being able to have kids. Are you going to be able to have kids? It oftentimes does not come from a place of malice, it's ignorance, but be prepared for questions. Have your answers tucked in and be able to answer so that you feel confident. One of the ways you can do that is just role play with a friend. Is there something that you want to talk about that you would be willing to disclose with your coworkers? And can you share that with your friend so that you feel comfortable? And it may mean, the person you share an office with gets more information than the person that you run into at a staff meeting once a month. And then think about how you would respond if somebody came to you. What are the questions you might have, or how might you respond if you heard one of your coworkers had cancer? Another way to feel more in control, not just of your story, but how you show up at work, is those thoughts that I was talking about. Because negative thoughts lead to negative feelings and negative behaviors. I'm very much a cognitive behavioral therapist, so you'll hear that a lot. But it is important to recognize how our thoughts impact our feelings, which impact our behaviors, because that does directly affect our work performance, our home performance, and how we feel about ourselves. So if you can, and it doesn't mean it's the very first thought, but catch that first negative thought that you recognize and create a positive change. And I'll give you an example for that in a moment. Also remembering that toxic relationships can impact us, and relationships have the opportunity to lift us up or pull us down. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to set boundaries there as well. When we think about creating a positive response, Let's start with an example of I'll never look the same. That's probably for many people a factual statement. Something may always change. You might always have a port scar. You might always have uh, a small amount of radiation burn, or your hair may look different. It may have come in a different color. So that is true. I will never look the same. What can happen next is leading to a lot more negative thoughts. But what if we caught that thought and then offered it something different? Yeah, I may never look the same, but I can make choices for myself right now that help me feel better. Or if I'm focused on beauty, that help me feel more beautiful, or that help me feel sexier, or help me to feel more confident, fill in the blank. And then choose a positive behavior to do. Maybe take a few extra minutes to get ready. Maybe step away from the project you're working on and do some positive self talk for yourself. Get up, take a walk, exercise, shift. Negative thoughts are impossible to prevent. So, as humans and as humans with brains and minds that work, they are impossible to prevent. But we can do some other things. We can ask ourselves, what things do I have control of? And how I think and feel about myself are actually things I do have control over. I can identify those thoughts that are making me feel worse and challenge them. Is there anything that I don't feel is attractive, and can I minimize or maximize other qualities? So if I know that my smile is something that people constantly compliment me on, maybe I need to think about how I enhance that. Again, it is not there's nothing wrong with thinking about how you show up or your appearance. It is important to think about how you can show up confidently. So what is it that you feel is less confident? And is there something that you feel very confident in? And see if you can course correct. Get more time doing the things you feel more confident in when you're feeling less confident so you can build your confidence. And even questions like, where can I excel at work? What can I feel positive about at work? And see if, again, you can do 80% of those things and 20% of the things that you feel insecure about. When we talk about toxic relationships, this includes the workplace as well as home or personal relationships. So take control over how you react and interact with relationships. Do you have toxic people around you? And if you do, and you can't create a barrier or separation between those people, make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who show up and support you. Can you create space? Can you go into any conversation with those individuals with a knowledge and a shield of not absorbing that toxicity, that you can be respectful, you can be collegial, but you don't need to take it, feed into it, own it, or absorb it. And certainly, our human resource team members are always available to support for challenges in the workplace, including maybe some team member challenges. So ask for help. And if your needs aren't being met, it's important to ask. Oftentimes, I think, even in the workplace, we sort of expect that people will read our minds or know how to interact with us or know that we need a 30-minute rest period. But if they don't know that, or if they don't know that their constant encouragement or telling you things happen for a reason isn't helpful, it's our opportunity and obligation to educate them. So tell them it's not helpful when you say to me, everything is okay or everything happens for a reason. What I need for you is to listen to me or tell me that this frustrates you too. Another focus is on reconnecting with yourself and others. Again, cancer can be very alienating for some, very isolating. In other situations, you may feel completely suffocated by people and support. So either way, take care of that. Support your new limitations and your new abilities. Give permission for them to be fluid and changing. It is not uncommon, especially the first couple of years after treatment is complete, for your body to take that time to heal. And that might mean one day you feel really great and you're fully focused and you feel clear. And the next day you might have pushed it too hard and you feel foggy and not as clear. That is okay. What is most important is making sure that if you know these ups and downs are coming, take care of yourself and communicate that with your manager or your team. And make sure you watch any patterns that, like, for example, if you have to do a presentation and it requires a ton of energy, plan to have time on the front end and back end to rest and recover. Choose one or two friends who know that you can be honest with and who can share your concerns with, that you're concerned about how when you show up for a presentation, people are preoccupied with the hair changes or wanting to ask you questions about cancer. Talk about it. Take time out to reconnect with yourself. Again, work is an extension, and we spend a lot of our life and our lifetime in work. So it consumes a lot of our time. And when we're there, we should feel good being there. So if you need to take time out so that you can feel better being there, take time out. Do something that allows you to reconnect with yourself so that you can show up to be your best self in the workplace. Support groups are a great place to connect with others and learn and share frustrations. Certainly, if you have ongoing concerns about the long term implications, or you're noticing side effects that continue to interfere with your ability to work, play, interact, be in relationships, make an appointment with your oncologist or a therapist to discuss because they might have some really good solutions for you. And if you find that you don't want to be around people, if you're finding that isolation is comforting, if that's just because you had a really busy week and you need quiet, that's one thing. But if you notice a pattern where isolation tends to be a preferred state of being, I'd really encourage you to consider being evaluated for depression. You can do that through your primary care provider, through an oncology therapist, or someone local in your community. So, what else can I do to strengthen confidence? A few techniques that we're going to talk about on building self confidence. Some simple things. Find three things every morning that you like about yourself. And these are physical appearance things, not just I'm a nice human. So again, focusing on body image, what are three things that you like about yourself? It can be your smile, the way your eyes light up when you talk about something you're excited about. It can be the way your hair looks. It can be the outfit you're wearing. But find three things every morning and name them. And if you have a hard time with it, on the day you don't, take a sticky note and put it on your mirror so that you can repeat that every day. Practice positive affirmations. My body supports my healing process, or I accept my body and I will do everything I can to love and help it heal. It may feel hard to say that initially. It's amazing how easy it is to say something negative and how hard sometimes it is to say something positive. But the more you repeat that positive thought, the more it latches, the more it starts to believe it. So even if it feels like you're straining to say it, practice it. It will make a difference. Again, giving patience and time to know your body again, know your limitations, know what accommodations you need in work to accommodate your new body, and make a list of your past successful relationships. So when we think about whether it's dating or collegial relationships, if we're focused on all of the negative things around our appearance, it's important to go back and remember most of the relationships that were successful in our life are not based solely on how we look or how they look, right? They're based on personality, things, how we show up, our loyalty, how we are as a friend, a coworker. So remember that too when it starts to feel like it's overwhelming. And similarly, give yourself that reality check. If I wake up and again continue to say the first thing out of my mind is, oh my gosh, how can you look like this again? You look horrible, awful, Sage. I can't believe how bad you look. Is that message true? Do I really look horrible, awful? Would a person say this to another person? Would you say that to your best friend? And if not, why am I saying that to myself? I need to find some additional language to give myself in the morning. And that's again where that sticky note can come into play. Write down something positive. It doesn't have to be Pollyanna-ish. It doesn't have to be overly optimistic. One patient recently told me she feels like sometimes in her cancer support group, there's like toxic positivity. Everybody's focused on all the good things. And I thought that was a really helpful term because sometimes we can over index on the positivity. So do what's realistic, but write something down that you can alter that negative message that you're sending yourself. And you can ask somebody else to give you a statement. If you're stuck and you really can't see anything that you like about yourself physically and personally, ask someone you trust to do it and then read their words to yourself. There's nothing better than the variety of ways that we can become more aware through creative expression. So journaling is a great tool to use that if we find that we are preoccupied with our body image or we're in a negative downward space or we're struggling at work, write about it. You can get a journal that has prompts. You can get a gratitude journal. Again, Um, there's something incredibly powerful we know neurologically through the expression of gratitude. So even when we're having a bad day, even when it feels like everything is going wrong, there is still science to say that practicing the act of gratitude, writing down 3 things that you're grateful for, can change the way your brain reacts and responds. So it doesn't mean we're replacing the horrible things, but it does mean we're finding other things to be grateful for. There's meditation and prayer that can be helpful. Getting in your body, exercising, moving, boxing, walking, jogging, pickleball, all of those get us back connected to our body, and that can't hurt when we're struggling with body image. It can really actually help. And then again, always learning to catch that thought. So how do I change those negative thoughts? Well, it's by substituting more positive words. Again, they need to resonate with you, but use words like happy, peaceful, loving, enthusiastic, warm. Try not to use words as worried, frightened, upset, tired, bored, never, can't. That's not to say that if you have a scan coming up and you say, I'm worried, that you shouldn't say that. I think what you can offer it is sort of the and. I'm worried and I'm hopeful, right? So you balance it. And one of the greatest opportunities we have, especially in the workplace, is when we should on ourselves. I know many of you may be familiar with Brene Brown. She's phenomenal, and wasn't the first to introduce the concept of shoulding on ourselves, but it really took off. If you think about that, when we say should, we are already telling ourselves we've failed. We are already shaming ourselves, saying we didn't do something right. So using the word I should have done that, I should have done better, I should have practiced more, doesn't lead to a better outcome for you. It just leaves you stuck on what you should have done instead of what you can do. So next time I can, or I know I need to do this the next time to feel more confident. Again, using other present tense words like I am healthy, not I'm going to be healthy, but I am healthy. I may not be as healthy as I want to be in a year from now, but I'm healthy now. I am well. I have a good job. And then using I language. So uh, Sage. So I, Sage, am strong and healthy today. I, Sage, support the health of my body today. Some other opportunities, I don't need to read all of these, and you can certainly go back and watch this at some point, but thinking about when that negative thought comes up that's telling you you're not worth anything. Challenge that with I'm a valuable person. And if you're struggling with these counters of positive, print this slide out and fold it up or write it down or go on ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to give you some positive thoughts to counter negative, and keep that in your wallet, in your pocket, in your purse, in your car, because it's important to have these opportunities to change and catch that thought. Create a go-to list. This is a list of strengths. So for example, for me, I really feel like I am a very authentic person, and that is a strength of mine, and I take pride in that. So writing down 5 of your strengths, then write down 5 things you admire about yourself. Find 5 of your greatest achievements in life so far. They can be, small things or big things, but like recovering from cancer or graduating from high school. And then write 20 accomplishments. This can be simple, like learning to feed yourself for the first time, or tying your shoes, or learning how to use a new computer. Make a list of 20 of those. Again, this is on one sheet of paper that you're going to keep with you. And then write down at least 5 ways you can treat yourself. If you're feeling down, low, or you need a pick me up, write some things down that don't cost money that will help lift you up. 5 things that make you laugh. 5 things that you could do to help someone else, because helping someone else often makes us feel better. And 5 things you can do to make yourself feel good about yourself. So dressing nice just because, taking extra time to pray, listening or dancing to music, yoga, any of those things, right? So think about that, playing with your grandkids. Any of those are opportunities. You're going to keep this list somewhere close, and you can make multiple copies of it so you have it everywhere. But reference that when you're struggling. Get back to practicing some of those positive reinforcements. Another opportunity is to be your own positive voice. This probably for me in my own work was one of the hardest exercises, and 5 minutes felt like an hour. So I started with 30 seconds and worked my way up. But think about setting a timer for 5 minutes, write your name across the top of the paper, and then write everything positive and good you can think about yourself. So things people tell you, as well as things you think about yourself. Include special attributes, talents, achievements. It's just for you. There's no judgment here. It's not a brag sheet. It's truly just, again, something for you to reference that you are doing exceptional things, or you are a worthy human, worthy of seeing these good things. We sometimes need to see again on paper in one place things that we've achieved. What we know about body image and workplace, what we know about how we can improve our body image so that it doesn't have greater negative impact on how we show up at work or again in our personal lives. Cognitive behavioral therapy interventions are the most researched and most supported. They target dysfunctional cognitions, emotions, and behaviors by altering our thoughts, right? So we just spent a lot of time talking about techniques that could help alter, and including some psychoeducation. So a little of what you learned today, some of the reasons that we do challenging a negative thought, but also then thinking about stress management. How might 3 minutes of deep breathing help you? There's a technique called box breathing that if you're feeling anxious can be incredibly helpful. Learning other stress management techniques that can help you both change your thoughts as well as be stronger in the workplace. Increase your problem solving skills. CBT and therapy can help with problem solving and again, cognitive reframing and communication skills training. There's nothing better than having a therapist you can practice some of those techniques with and strengthen that muscle. It is a muscle. Our mind is a muscle, and it is something that can be trained and learn the neural pathways can change. So we can change something that's constantly been negative and help it create a new pathway of positivity. Other psychological interventions, if you're struggling with your body image and that's impacting your emotional or sexual relationships, certainly psychosocial therapy, focusing on communication training, sensate focus exercises with you and your partner, and body image exposure. If you find that you are unwilling to be naked or seen by a partner or partners, a sex therapist would be a great resource for you. And then certainly expressive supportive therapy. So journaling, art therapy, music therapy, yoga therapy can really also help in receiving and offering support, but also learning some additional coping skills. We know that for many people, just hearing it's normal and receiving some education can also be helpful. Cancer and Careers is a great educational resource. It has a ton of information on managing life after cancer and specifically in the workplace that you can use to test out what you think is fact or fiction. Information that's disseminated from lectures or cosmetic focused interventions as well. There is zero shame. It is not vain to go to whether it's an esthetician or a dermatologist or a cosmetic surgeon and have a conversation around, I'm really preoccupied with this scar. Is there anything we can do to improve its appearance? Or I'm not satisfied with the reconstruction. Can we do anything to improve the appearance? I don't like my port scar. Is there a way to get rid of it? There is nothing vain or shameful about that. I often hear from people, mostly women, but men too, that they feel guilty or shameful about bringing the body image struggles forward because they should just be glad to be alive or be glad to be thriving. And I think what a shame. Prior to cancer, it would have been normal for you to struggle with this. How does it change? You're still human, you're still you. And cancer wreaked havoc on body image, which in this country, unfortunately, is a huge focus. So don't be afraid or feel shame around asking some of those questions of medical providers or therapists, again, or going to the cosmetic station at the mall and asking for a makeover. Men and women can do that. If you identify as non-binary, whatever you're feeling that day and you want to come out more in as masculine, go have somebody help you. Again, there's so many options that you can take advantage of. And then also, when we think about how we get back into our bodies, it's important. If we're disassociating from our body, we're disassociating from ourself. And so if you're at work and you're disconnecting because you're distracted by your body, you're not giving your best, you're not focusing on the work. We can oftentimes separate ourselves, and I would use a different word for that, like compartmentalize. But disassociate is when we've kind of stepped outside of ourselves. So there are ways, if we're feeling disconnected from our body or disassociated, massage is a great way to get back connected to our body, to allow ourselves to be touched and feel touch that is therapeutic and non-sexual in nature. It also can help reduce stress. We know that hatha yoga, which focuses on changing our perceptions about physical constraints imposed on our body, is great. If you haven't had a chance to take a hatha yoga class, I find them incredibly enriching. And again, it's not about who can hold tree pose the longest or stretch. It's really about challenging our perceptions about those physical constraints imposed on our body by things. And then strength training and physical exercise are critical to our recovery. Again, that doesn't need to be 50-pound weights. It can be 5-pound weights, but getting your strength and your balance back, physical exercise on a daily basis is really important and will impact your energy at work, your focus at work, how you feel at work, the food you take in at work, and that's important. All of those things impact how we feel about ourselves and see ourselves cognitively. So in summary, cognitive behavioral therapy and exercises have been shown to be the most effective interventions. I always like to remind you, even though I say it a couple of times, that you are in charge of yourself, your thoughts, your environment, and your body. And although it seems a little cliche, be patient with the changes and explore options for improvement. Again, ask a friend, gut check with someone you trust around, is this distracting? Is this scar as visible as I think it is? Is my weight gain as visible as I think it is? And what do people think about it? Is my weight loss, right? Check it with someone that you trust who can be honest with you. And they may say, yes, it's distracting, and you'll have to be prepared for that. But then that gives you facts that you can work with a therapist, with an exercise therapist, with a physician, and start to find ways again to build your confidence back up. And being patient does not mean letting the side effects sort of roll over you and not managing them. Being patient is as important as learning skills to manage the things that are impacting your day-to-day life. But healing takes time. Seek out help from a professional to help work through the roadblocks. Again, that could be a trusted pastor or faith leader. It could be a therapist. It could be a sex therapist. It could be someone within your EAP at work or HR that you need some guidance on how to better perform at work. And allow that time to adjust. It does take time to adapt. So treat yourself in the same way I said, be patient. Treat yourself with compassion and kindness. You know, there's an exercise of sort of placing your hands over your heart and saying something positive, including like, I'm going to do all I can to love and heal my body. And that, just filling that again over your heart, telling yourself that. You can do that when you're at work and nobody will know what you're doing because you can say it in your head. You can offer it to yourself as a gesture, a reminder that you are going to nurture and care and be compassionate with yourself, just like you would your colleague, your friend, your partner or partners, your child, right? We need to sometimes extend the same grace and compassion to ourselves that we are so often so willing and so quickly willing to extend to someone else. Same with the changes in your body. Be patient. Give yourself that grace and time. Hold that closeness. The other physical activity you can do over than just putting your hands over your heart is, I can't do it because the camera won't follow me, but I'm going to model it like sort of modified. We call this some people call it the Wonder Woman, Superwoman. I call it the superhero stance, where you stand and your hands are on your hips. So I'll move back down. Hands are on your hips. You're standing up straight, right? And you stand and you look in that mirror for a good 30 seconds. Hold your chest high, keep your hands on your hips, and you can say any kinds of words. You can say, I've got this. You can say, you are, I am amazing. I am incredible. I can do all things. It may seem somewhat over the top, but there is actually, again, science to say that when we stand in this stance, shoulders back and high, chest out, hands on the hips, that it physiologically changes our body and our mind. And that makes sense, right? Because if we sit like this, so if you're doing it with me and you sit like this, how's that feel? It feels very low, slumped over. But the moment that you come back up, hands on your hips, straight ahead, even if you say nothing, just the posture changes something in your body. Hold it 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. If you're getting ready to go in for a presentation and you're feeling anxious, stand in your cubicle or in your office or in your closet and stand in this position before you take your spot. Additional things as we wrap up. Talking with others who have been in a similar situation and can support positive thinking. There is nothing better than relating to someone else and feeling like, oh, I thought I was the only one. No, I'm not. Thank goodness. That can be really helpful, as well as you might learn things. So support groups are a great resource if they are professionally moderated. Sometimes groups that are not professionally moderated can kind of go off the rails or might just be a place where people come and complain. That's not helpful. So find one that's professionally moderated. And then again, I've said this a lot, but physical activity is so important and everybody has their different range of abilities, but do as much movement as you can, including social activities. Even for you introverts out there, socialization is really important. I know it's not what gives you energy, but it is something that is really important. It's a muscle to exercise. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you moving. And I mentioned them, but I'll mention again, the medical or non-medical interventions, anything you can do that would help build your body confidence. And there are so many different clothing lines and clothing options now that are built to help with body confidence. Think about what your goals and your struggles are and discuss them with your healthcare team. It is okay for it to be, I'm feeling really low these days. What do you recommend I do? I'm really struggling with the weight gain on this medication. Is there any other alternative for me? Is there any other thing I can do? Seek counseling. Both AOSW, the Association of Oncology Social Workers, lists resources. So does the American Association of Sex Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. So seek out support. So in summary, I love this picture. I just think it speaks volumes. And although this was written as a breast cancer survivor, the words ring true, I think, to all. Dear body, I wasn't always happy with you. I wanted longer legs, a flatter tummy, firmer arms. But recently, we've been through a lot, you and I. We faced cancer together. We lost our right breast. Our hair fell out. We got through it. And now I've learned to love and accept you for what you are. Not perfect, but beautifully imperfect. You are my body, and I'm proud of you. So even if you take this quote and read it to yourself several times over the course of a week, look in your eyes while you're doing it. Again, send that message back to you, back to your mind, back to your body. Read it. Even if it's that last statement. Not perfect, but beautifully imperfect. You are my body, and I'm proud of you. Thank you so much for your time and attention. It's time to go into some question and answer time. And again, we'll do our best to get to all the questions we can and answer any that I don't after.
Thank you so much, Sage. I'm over here practicing my Wonder Woman arms.
There you go.
I call them Peter Pan arms too sometimes. You know, like
That works. Peter Pan too.
I
Absolutely.
got a crow.
I love it. I love it.
Now, before we get into Q&A, just a few more housekeeping things. Here's some resources if you want to follow up with anything. Sage's contact info if you have any questions, and check out lifewithcancer.org and inova.org. And then we have some upcoming events that we want to let you know about. We are just about to start a couple month long job search suite here in our Balancing Work and Cancer webinar series. So in April, we are going to have marketing yourself. Then May, we are doing using AI strategically in a job search, which is going to be really interesting and timely. And then we are going in June with resumes in LinkedIn. And then not on the slide, the last one we have is going to be in July, is a job search session. So we hope you will join us for those if you're looking for work, if you're thinking of changing jobs, if you know somebody who's looking for work, we hope that we'll see you there. And then we also have our Midwest Conference on Work and Cancer coming up later this month on March 28th. It is going to be an all-day conference. You're welcome to come in and out as you wish. The Midwest Conference is a little bit of a misnomer. It is just being held in the Midwest time zone, but it's going to be Zoom and anybody can join from all over the world. We also have our national conference coming up in June and our West Coast conference coming up in October. So again, depending on where you are in your time zone, it might be beneficial, but we'd love to have you for all three of them. And then this is my contact information. If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to reach out to me and follow Cancer and Careers on all of our social networks to stay updated and get some hopefully helpful information throughout your week as well. And finally, I'm going to leave this slide up for anybody who is requesting CEs with all the requirements there. Again, something is going to pop up. There's, I think a link is in the chat, and you'll also get something that pops up in your browser at the end of the session, as well as an email tomorrow, or maybe even today, depending on a few things. So look forward to that. We hope you'll fill out that evaluation and let us know how we're doing here. So with that, Sage, I have a bunch of questions here. The first one I have is it normal to feel like a part of your body is alien to you? For example, implants after breast cancer surgery.
So normal. And your body as whole may feel alien to you after a cancer diagnosis because your body has changed. It's had a lot of treatments that have changed. Whether even I hear oftentimes I only had radiation or I'm only taking a hormone therapy drug. And no matter what, we're giving you something that's changing your body. So it will feel that way. It is very common with implants, especially, to feel like you have something that doesn't belong to you. And some of that is truly just going to take time. You will adjust to it. But also practicing some of those same activities I said, sort of if you're comfortable touching your breast, for example, if it's a prosthetic, and sending it positive messages of, I know you're not my original, but I'm so glad you're here, right? There's some things you can say to that to help accept that space, understanding that it's going to feel different, especially if you had a single reconstruction and you have one natural breast still, they will feel different for a while or maybe for forever, but being able to offer sort of that normalization is important. And I will say, if it bothers you, and I'll tell a quick story. There is a young man who came up to me after one of these conferences who had had an orchiectomy, testicles removed due to testicular cancer, and had had a implant put in, much to the push of the surgeon. And he wasn't really interested in having a implant. He thought he didn't really care, and his partner didn't really care whether he had one testicle or two or none. But he went ahead with it. And that decision created a ton of distress for him. It was incredibly uncomfortable. He gave it time. He gave it a year and a half, and he just never felt like it was something that he could get comfortable with. And so he made the decision to go back and have it out. So again, conversations with your providers, with your loved ones, with yourself, really important because you don't want to be constantly distracted by something that doesn't feel right on your body.
I think this too is a great opportunity for a call out for therapists as well. It's something you can work through with them on a regular basis, and it's going to change over time, both your feelings and the way it actually physically feels,
Yeah,
and having somebody there, excuse me, to talk to and work through that in real time is a great resource if you have it available
absolutely.
to you.
Absolutely. And I saw, Scott, there was a question on here, if you don't mind, that I think there are
Yeah.
resources within Cancer Careers, and it often comes up around the utilization of social media while you're looking for a job and where you shared your story. So I'm gonna give you my perspective, and then Scott, I think professionally you can too. So
Yeah, I'll fill in
there
what
are
you.
there are blessings to social media when you need support. Such good things. I think one of the things we have to remember is your digital footprint, fingerprint is permanent. It's there. And so if you have made the choice to disclose your cancer diagnosis in a very public way, even if it's not on LinkedIn, if it's on Instagram, if it's on Facebook, if it's on um, Twitter or X, you might want to consider how much of that you want to keep up there. And again, yes, you can go back and delete, and yes, it might still be searchable even if it's private, but you can do some scrubbing of it. And here is my recommendation. If you are comfortable walking into a room and everyone knowing you have cancer or have had cancer, and that you know them knowing that that's going to be the first thing they're wondering about when they sit across the table from you, you might want to consider not using social media to continue to find connections or share your story. If that doesn't seem to impact you, then again, there are some people who walk into an interview with a pink ribbon shirt on and be very confident and willing to share their story. I have not found employers, especially in this day and age, to bias someone for having a cancer diagnosis or have been out on social media. However, most employers search social media and they search them for information. So again, I think you need to find a balance similarly to dating. I personally would not disclose a cancer history on the first date just because you're just getting to know them. Like, you don't know how they show up. They may have food in their teeth all night and they don't deserve your story. But if you get to that third date and you're feeling like, yeah, let's get to date four, then my recommendation is, before you get too deep into feelings, and if they have the characteristics and qualities you're looking for in a partner, by date four, probably disclosing and being able to have that conversation, because what that also does is it gives them an out if they don't have the ability to manage that. That's not because they're a bad person. It means they're not the right person for you. But giving them the opportunity to lean in or lean out. And then that's going to give you the information too on their quality and characteristics and their ability to handle other tough things that are going to get thrown your way as a couple in life. So disclosure is something on Cancer and Careers. And I think it does impact, especially if it's very visible. If what you have is a visible thing, then really thinking through, you don't have to disclose it, just know that there may be questions, that thinking through that, and then being able to again either embrace it or try to make it as less visible as possible when you're going for job interviews based on your comfort. Scott.
Well, first of all, you can tell how long Sage has been working with Cancer and Careers because you have hit probably 95% of our talking points on this topic. Um, yeah, and it's something that the community that people can make on social media is invaluable, especially when you're going through something that you don't know anybody in your own personal life who's gone through something like that. Being able to find people and connect with them and all of like we hear all of those stories are incredible. But like Sage said, it doesn't go away. It can be found when somebody's Googling you, not necessarily to find anything negative, but just, to confirm your employment history or whatever they might be looking for, and that can come up. And we say that it's really great to be able to share your own story how you want it to be told. And when somebody finds some information about you before even meeting you or after meeting you on a phone screen or something like that, you're not able to be there to answer questions, prove yourself, show who you are outside of your diagnosis. So that's just something to think about too, is people will often ask us if they have to disclose their diagnosis on a job application or a cover letter. The answer to that is no. You are not required to share your health history with your employer in most instances, and we get into a little bit of that in other presentations, but like if you're requesting a reasonable accommodation under the ADA, there needs to be some level of disclosure to prove that you are eligible for those protections. But besides that, in most instances, your employer's not allowed to ask you about your health or your health history. So
Yeah.
we recommend trying to wait a little longer into the process so that they are able to absorb who you are as a person, as a potential employee, what your strengths are, how great you are going to be at this job. And then if you're worried about, missing work for doctor's appointments or treatment, or, if you're wearing a wig or, like whatever the concern might be, later on in the process, once, as Sage said, once you get a handle of it, once you see who they are and you feel like this is a good fit, then maybe you bring it up, either at the end of the hiring process or even after you've been hired on your, if you're filling out paperwork and you disclose then.
Yeah.
It's
I think
all
the most important thing is, as Scott indicated, like, you should be able to control your narrative in the way that you want it to be controlled. And when we put our story out there, someone else can control that narrative. So just be prepared. Again, it's not wrong to use social, just know that it's there. One of the other things I've heard from people that are afraid that their competency might be challenged if they find out they've had cancer is, if you're changing jobs and you worked for someone during your cancer treatment or right before it, and they know you well, they know your competencies, have them write a letter of recommendation. And if you're disclosing up front that you have cancer, they can make that part of their recommendation, that in the midst of going through treatment, the resilience, the work, the successes they had in the workplace were phenomenal. So again, that's probably not the first way I'd lead, but if you feel like you're disclosing, you're out there, it is something that you're going to lead with, make sure you have those letter of recommendations that can support how successful you will be in that role.
I love that idea. So we're actually over time. This is gonna be the last question. If we don't get to your question today, we are so sorry. Please shoot us an email, cancerandcareers@cew.org, and we'll get you an answer as soon as we can. That email also, if you have any questions after this, a month from now, a year from now, we're always here for that one-on-one support if you ever need it. Uh, the last question I have here is, I have obviously gained weight over the course of my treatment journey. How do I address those who comment on my weight without being rude when honestly it's none of their business?
It's honestly none of their business. And if you have people commenting on your weight, I think you need to evaluate the people around you. So unfortunately, as I said, like, people are human, and we live in a world now where people just feel like they have the freedom to say anything. And I know it's not uncommon for somebody to comment on weight gain or weight loss. And in the world of, the Wegovy's and medical weight loss push, certainly people feel even freer. So my recommendation would be that if somebody comments on your weight, you change the subject if you can, and talk about, oh yeah, I was out walking the other day and heard about this article. Change the subject if you can. Or if you haven't noticed, I'm pretty comfortable with confrontation and maybe a little snarky. So I might come back with, I know, I recognize you've struggled up and down with your weight over time too. It sucks, doesn't it? There's a lot of ways that you can authentically respond. You've got to find your own voice. So for me, that's probably be how I would respond. You can avoid it and pretend you didn't hear it. You can address it head on and say, you know what? I've been going through things, and you commenting on my weight constantly is not helpful and it's not encouraging. Would you please stop? Be direct. You can generalize it. You know what? In general, people struggle with their weight when they're going through hard times. And I'm going through a hard time right now. I'd appreciate your support instead of your judgment. Um, and again, if you don't feel comfortable, if that's a coworker, that is something, if somebody's asking about your weight, that I would take straight to your HR business partner and have a conversation with them about how to address it. Because in the workplace, unless they're a friend and they're coming to you out of concern, which is a very different question, it's not appropriate. And I love the one in the chat says, tell them you swallowed the last noisy busybody who commented about I love that, Maria. Yes.
That's a
So
good
again, I think
response.
that's where you use your manager, your boss, if it is. If it's coming from a place of true concern, I think you can honor that. Say, I really appreciate that you love me and are concerned about me. This has been a hard time for me, and the treatments I'm on are contributing to my weight challenges, and I'm working with my doctor to figure out how to manage it, but this is where I am right now.
I'll put a plug in for two. We're having a nutrition session at our Midwest
Great.
conference. We have a really great nutritionist who actually spoke on this series last year named Carla, who she talked last year about just some people have trouble eating at all while they're in treatment.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to, you want to try to be balanced meals and, get your greens in and all the stuff that we hear all the time, but sometimes you just have to eat something.
Yeah.
And getting through treatment and your week and whatever, like there are days where if you can just eat anything, that is what you need to be doing. So, give yourself some grace and remind yourself that you got through this really challenging time in your life. And, whether you gained weight, you lost weight, whatever your body is, like you went through this traumatic experience and you got through it. And this is how you came out of it. And, for better or for worse, that is there. And, you know, things like Sage was saying of the positive affirmations and all of that can really help you too, I think. Well, this was wonderful, Sage. Thank you so much. Thank you for
My
all of you
pleasure.
for joining us, and we hope we'll see you next month.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.